Well, howdy YouTube, Unky Joe here, Unky Joe's Playhouse. Today, we're going to install Windows Server 2019 again. But this time, we're doing it on the IBM, the 3650 Model 3, I believe it is. And it's a little bit different than how I installed it on the Dells. And as you know, I'm getting my whole entire rack running Windows Server 2019. That is the two Dells that I have in there and the one IBM. And the last one I have to do is this IBM server. So come on along, let's get it installed, and we'll meet up at the end of the video. Alright, so I'm over. Step one is you're going to need to have remote access to your server, of course. And I have a virtual Windows 7 machine set up here in VMware. And the first thing I need to do is make sure that I have a Windows Server 2019 ISO file here to use. So on the C drive on this virtual machine, you'll see that I've copied over the Windows Server 2019 ISO install DVD. So it's out there waiting for us. So what I want to do is come up here to our session. Let me show you from scratch. So you come over here to remote control. We're going to use the ActiveX. We're going to do it in single user mode. Then it'll bring up an ActiveX control to connect to that server. The next thing I want to do is come over here to Tools and go to Launch Virtual Media. And what I need to do is click on Add an Image. And then we're going to point to this image here that we saved onto the C drive on this virtual machine. And we're going to make sure we map this as well. And then I like to move that over to the side and click on Details so I can see when it's being read and written to, or read from. And we'll go ahead and go over here to Tools, Power, and Power On. Wait a minute, it says it's not mapped and it's not mounted. Let's mount, so there we go. That may have been part of our problem, huh? Yeah, make sure you mount the image. Oh, I get dumber as the years get longer. That's alright. We may have to reboot again. It does look like it's reading. You see the read bytes have incremented here, so. But I may have confused the little IMM adapter. Alright, so now we'll try the CD-ROM drive. Yep, and it looks like it's reading. Well, look, yep, there it goes. Now it's reading. Press any key to boot. Now, I've already installed Windows Server 2019 on here as a test, so it's going to show that I already have an operating system on here, but that's okay. Now, I will warn you, it's a little slow installing Windows Server this way with virtual media, but I don't feel like getting up and putting a USB key in that IBM. It's all the way over there. It's all the way over there, 15 feet from me. And frankly, I should have people to do that for me, right? I should have people. Now, while this is doing its thing, I'm going to go run and get another cup of coffee. So we'll come back when something interesting changes. All right, so as you can see, my coffee cup is now quite full. Time to carry on. So the monkey presses the buttons. I'm going to install it now. Now, I always choose custom install, just a creature of habit. I just like having a little bit more control over the hard drives that it gets installed to, so. And I'm going to choose the desktop experience because I'm a GUI guy. I'm going to accept the license terms, click on Next. I'm going to do a custom install, and actually what I'm going to choose is drive 0. You can see the other 3 drives I have in here, so I have a total of 4 drives, and you can see I've already installed Windows 2019 at one point, so I need to delete all of these partitions. Now, let's see. It looks like it's going to let me. Yay! Yay, yay, yay. So, drive 0, unallocated space, 136 gig. Next. Hopefully it'll create all the drives and partitions it needs. And this is where we'll see if we get lucky here. And we should see it start incrementing on the CD-ROM drive. Yes, we do. Good. So we'll let this run, and well, we'll hope it runs. We'll see if it gets to 1% at least. Yes, it does. All right, so we'll let this run and come back when something changes. All right, so I don't know how long it's been, 10, 15 minutes. But we're going, it's ready to restart now. And hopefully it will boot off of the hard drive it just installed onto and not off of the virtual machine again. So I'm going to unmount this. And I'm going to exit it. Just, and hope, cross my fingers, that it boots off the internal hard drive. You ever had one of those days when all your technology just kind of goes to hell in a handbasket? Yeah, I'm just trying to wash some sheets in my washing machine. Oh, all the bells and whistles is going completely insane. Alright, so now it's rebooted a couple of times, and now we're up at the password screen. So I'm going to go ahead and enter a super secret password here to continue on. Now this IBM, I don't use it that often, but it is going to be being put to use. I'm trying to get all the server installs on all my two Dells and my IBMs the same operating system. We played around with XCPNG on this machine, and okay, I need to come up here to macros, Control Alt Delete. We played around with XCPNG on this machine. It works really well, but I just want to have Windows Server on these higher end enterprise servers. It just suits my needs better. And if you saw the Dell, the R710 we installed Windows Server 2019 onto, that's got kind of a specialized task right now. It is my archival server, and it's also a backup Hyper-V. This will be in addition and also another backup Hyper-V server, so we will be doing a Hyper-V install on this as well. Not in this video. This is just getting Windows Server 2019 set up and installed. So now what typically happens after you install Windows Server, Server Manager comes up, and the first thing I like to do is keep that from coming up in the future, because we're going to start using Windows Admin Center as part of these Server 2019 videos. So I'm just going to tell it, don't show this message again. Oh, and the mouse is a little wonky in this virtual interface. So the first thing I want to do is change our time zone. So I'm going to come right here, change the time zone, change that to Central Time. And okay. Now the next thing I like to do is I'm going to give this unit a hard-coded IP address. So we've determined the IP address for this is going to be 5.5. And you'll see I have I have a total of 6 network cards enabled here. So I'm going to go to this one first. And it appears to be, okay, here's the Mellanox right here. This is an unidentified USB. So what I'm going to do is disable these. I'm going to, I know this is my Mellanox, so the first thing I want to do on this is rename it. And I'm going to call this 10GB-1. So I know that's my 10 gigabit Ethernet controller. This is the one we're going to be using in hard coding the IP. So let's rename this to Gigabit 1-1. And then we're going to come here to properties. And I'm going to give it a hard coded IP address. Give it the correct gateway. Give it the IP address of our DNS. And we have an internal DNS server on Active Directory. And then we'll give Google as our other DNS server. Now the other thing I'm going to do, just to avoid confusion, I'm not using these other Ethernet cards, so I'm going to go ahead and disable them, each one of them. Okay, then I'm going to close this, come back to Server Manager, and we're going to refresh this. Now I thought I disabled the 10 gig networking adapter, did I not? I did not. I'm going to go ahead and disable that as well, just for now. We can configure that later. I just don't want there to be any conflict. So we now have our IP address hard-coded in there. Let's go ahead and change our computer name, because this computer is going to be called Apollo. Tell it OK. Now here's the deal. Anytime you rename a machine or join it to a domain or anything like that, Windows, of course, wants to restart. So we're going to let Windows restart, and we'll come back here in just a moment. Alright, so we've rebooted, and we've got our correct IP address in there now. So, and we've renamed the machine. And do you know why I like Windows on these enterprise level servers? Because it just works. It just works, folks. It's got all the drivers, it's got pretty much everything we need. Now you're going to notice I've got an error here, no internet access. Just ignore this for now. We're going to wait for the Server Manager screen to update. You see it's given it the correct name now. Now let's go here to the Ethernet adapter and make sure. Sometimes, you know, I saw this on Windows Server 2012, 2016, 2019. Sometimes it'll dump that gateway, and I don't know why, but it's working now. So that's correct. So now let's go ahead and actually join this to the MCS domain, and then we can enable the remote desktop and do the remote, or do the rest remotely through an RDP session. So let me do that again. I just come over here to Workgroup, click on it, come here to change, make it a member of the domain. I'm going to type in my domain name, which is mcs.local. Now the username you need to use will vary depending on how your Active Directory domain is set up. This is a account with domain admin privileges. Okay, it's going to welcome us to the domain, and then it's going to reboot again. So let it reboot, and we'll come back after that's done. Alright, so it looks like it's rebooted, so let's hit Control-Alt-Delete. Today, this time we're going to choose another user and log in as Adama. Now the next thing we're going to do is enable remote desktop and turn off that Server Manager from coming up. I waited to disable Server Manager till I actually logged in as domain administrator. Otherwise it's kind of a moot point, because we won't be using the administrator account per se, we'll be using the Adama account. So If I'd have turned it off earlier, it would have still popped up. And there should be a buttload of updates out here to do as well, but we'll do them through RDP. So I'm going to come back to the local server here. And go to remote desktop. And I'm going to make sure I allow. Now it's going to warn you about the firewall, and it tells you the exception will be enabled. So now previously I've told people just turn the firewall off on a lab network. I've had a lot of people chide me over that, but you do what you want. I'm going to go ahead and leave it enabled for now because it's not causing me any trouble. What I was concerned about was getting the remote desktop enabled. So I'm going to refresh that, and it should be enabled now. So now I should be able to go to a remote desktop session and log in. So let's give that a try. All right, so I've got it set to connect to Apollo. Let's see if we have any luck here, because things will be much easier with an RDP session, as you can see already. Yay! Now we'll wait for Server Manager to come up. Go ahead and get all our updates done. It should come up. If not, we can bring it up manually. Let's also get Task Manager up here and see what's going on with all of our resources. I like to have this running to give an idea of what's running in the background, and we're going to sort it by CPU. And let's go out and change it to logical processors. Okay, so I'm going to have to manually hit Server Manager. That's okay. As you can see over RDP, it's pretty speedy. Okay, so we've got our IP set up. We've given it a name. We've joined the domain. Now, the next thing we want to do is go and do the updates on the system. And I'm not going to make you sit here through all these updates. So I'll do all of these updates. We may have to reboot 2 or 3 times, get all the updates done, and then I'll come back when something else is going on. All right, so we had sorry, I got a little juice from my vaping on my fingers, so I want to get it off. So we've done one set of updates, and now Windows, in its infinite wisdom, has decided there are more updates to do. So just like Windows 10, in fact, Windows 10 and Server 2019 are exactly the same operating, well, they're the same kernel underneath. And it makes sense, you know, from Microsoft's perspective. Why would you have multiple kernels for different operating systems when they've been doing this for years? So just like Windows 10, the 2019 kernel is the same, just different stuff they layer on top of the underlying operating system. More bells and whistles. That's why it costs more. So, but there's an old adage: you get what you pay for, and you will pay for Windows Server. In fact, now Microsoft does encourage people that run labs and do testing. They give you all kinds of options to get Windows and run it for free. Activation nag on the screen does not mean it's going to stop working. So just keep that in mind. And if you do the trial version, you can, like I say, you can re-enable it I say 3 times, some people say 5 times. You can get up to 3 years of free usage on it. You know, Microsoft doesn't care if you're running it in a lab. They know. They know. Alright, so again, we'll let this round of updates run, and we'll come back when something new and exciting happens. Alright, so it looks like our updates have all finished, so now Windows Server 2019 is up to date. So now I'm going to go in here under Server Manager Properties and tell it do not start automatically at logon, and then I can have that when I need it. Let's go ahead and take care of our hard drives. I'm going to install Drive Bender on here. You know how I love Drive Bender. I really don't have a need for more hard drives. I have lots of storage. And frankly, any Hyper-V machines I create on here will be probably connected via iSCSI, but it would be nice to have some storage available for a local virtual machine. So let's go out and look at those other hard drives I have here. So I'm just going to right click on the start button and go to disk management. And what we're going to do is just, as you can see, these 3 disks are all unallocated. So I'm going to go ahead and do a new simple volume on all of these. I'm not going to assign a drive letter. And I'm going to use REFS. And I'll just call this DB1 for drive bender 1. Let it format. Do the same thing with these. Alright, so now I have 3 volumes that I can assign to drive bender. Now the next thing is to go get drive bender. So the other thing I like to do with all my servers is map drive Z. So I'm going to go to the NAS. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to map this applications folder to drive Z until it reconnect at login. Just makes my life easier. That's why we have a NAS, right? Now I'm looking for the drive bender program. Now drive bender, I'm going to use version 3.1. That's the most recent. And it has some prerequisites that it needs to install, so it'll probably prompt me to install those pieces as well. I got a 3-user or a 3-machine version of drive bender years ago, and I've maintained my license. So it already sees Net Framework is installed, but it's going to do C++. It should install it automatically, accept the license terms. Oops, sorry. Accept the license terms and install. Go ahead and close that. And then the actual drive bender will install. And I'm just going to put it on the C drive. It's going to do its prerequisites. Now, sometimes this will bomb on this portion of the install. Hopefully it'll go through this time. But it's adding a Windows feature. If you've ever, on Windows 10, added a Windows feature, you're familiar with this. It goes out to a command prompt. And you've probably figured out by now, drive bender is my go-to drive management software for these servers. I don't have a need for RAID 5 or anything like that. I just prefer to put them in a drive pool. And then if I need to duplicate something, I can do it on a folder by folder basis. It does not impact my speed. I still get the full 120 megabytes per second when I use drive bender. Another reason I like it. And for me, it's been very stable. I've put it on servers, I've put it on Windows 10 machines, I've put it on Windows 7 machines, Windows Server 2016, 2012. Like I said, I've been using it for years and never had, knock on wood, any problems with it. So, okay, I'm going to tell it to run. Now, what I like to do after I install drive bender is to actually reboot the server. And it's going to install a driver, device driver. Like I say, I like to reboot the server after I install drive bender. And you'll probably see that after I create the drive pool, that I will also, and it even tells me now to reboot. So we're going to tell it yes. And we may have to do that after we create the drive pool as well. We'll see if we have that issue. So I'm going to go ahead and reboot this and we'll come back. Alright, so we've rebooted once more. Let's go ahead and go into Drive Bender Manager and let's see if we can't get our drive pool set up. Now, what I should be able to do, let's see. If I click on the plus here, yes, it looks like it's going to create a new pool. So we'll add a new hard drive to the pool. I haven't created a pool, but believe it generates one automatically. If you look up here, it says Windows Pool, Windows Drive Vendor Pool. This pool was automatically generated, pool mode online. Now, it doesn't have a drive letter yet or anything like that, so we'll worry about that in a minute. What I want to do is add these 3 drives. So we'll just click on the plus, accept the defaults here. We don't need to format the drives. We've already done that. Are we sure? Yes, we're going to add it. And it's successfully added it to the pool. Now we're going to do the same thing with the other 2. We're going to add, yes. And we're going to add the 3rd one. Alright, and I think what we need to do is create a new mount point. And we're going to do drive letter P. And we'll just call it pool 1, I think. Great. Yep. Let's see what happens. I think I've been... Which size do we have? So it's roughly 400 gig free. But it's better than having those drives sitting around, wouldn't you agree? Now, let's see if we can actually start creating some folders on that drive, or if we're going to need to... Nope, looks like it worked. Now, the other thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and copy some files over to this unit, just to do a little test, see what kind of speed we get. However, I think we will have to connect to Hermes to do that. So let me see if Hermes will let us... Hermes is our Exponology NAS. Yes, there it is. And I'm going to go grab some sci-fi videos. Anyway, Hermes is our Exponology NAS, so I'm just going to copy these files here, my standard, just to make sure we're getting some good speeds. And I'll go ahead and paste it. And we'll get more details, and as you can see, we're getting 113 megabytes per or 113 megabytes per second, and it is writing to the drive pool. So it's going to take about 60 seconds. I want to see that our speed is maintained over the course of the copy. And you can see it's starting to fill out the little pie chart here as it's copying data. We're getting really good write speeds, as we should with Windows. And since these drives are just simply in a pool, we have the speed of the individual drives. We don't have to write parity or anything like that, so it's pretty speedy. Alright, so it looks like the copy was successful and complete, and that should do it now. So now we have our Windows Server 2019 set up on the IBM. And the next thing we're going to do with this machine is we're going to install Hyper-V, but we're going to do that in another video on Hyper-V. So there you go. That's how you set up Server 2019 on an IBM X3650 Model 3. So there you go. It's installed, up and running, updates are done, etc., etc., etc. Now this machine, this server will not be used that often, but my goal here was to have my entire stack of enterprise level servers running Windows Server 2019. I'm paying Microsoft for it, so I want to use it, and I do have some needs for it doing my labs moving forward. Now the next thing we're going to do is cover Windows Admin Center, which is basically a GUI interface for managing all these servers, and we'll show you what some of the features and neat little things about Windows Admin Center are and how to install it. And I'll be installing that on my primary Dell server. So you've got that video to look forward to, of course. So anyway, we hope you found this video entertaining and informative. Please give us a thumbs up down below. Leave your comments down in the comment section. And subscribe, pardon me, if you're not already a subscriber. And hit that little notification bell thingy that, I don't know what it does, but supposedly it tells you when I post new videos this week. So hopefully YouTube has fixed that. Donate if you're so inclined. We take PayPal and Patreon. Just a little tickler for some upcoming videos. We're getting ready now that spring has sprung here in South Texas. We're going to be doing a lot of work around Unky Joe's Playhouse. I'm not going to reveal the secret yet, but we are putting a new porch on the side of the house, and we're fixing the one on the front of the house. So we'll bring you along on those videos as well. So thanks again for coming to see us, and please don't forget that we will see you on the other side.